Morning, y'all.
What's up?
What's up? We don't have a topic to talk about yet. We just thought we'd press play. Do you have some?
How important is language?
Language is
Father?
phenomenally important. I'm thinking of a guy named...
The way you word your words.
The way you word your words. It's in everything. So I think this question's coming up because of the article I was just telling you about that was in RTL the other day. And it was about income disparity. And they were talking about the different villages in Luxembourg where people make the most money. And then they used words like disparity. But it was in reference to the different villages that people make. And so it really made it sound as if you live in this village, you make more money. If you make in that village, you make less money. And it was really kind of, they had it backwards. So we'll use one village, for example, called Niederanven. It was one of the highest ones. There's Niederanven, Ludelange, and Chutronge. Yeah, I think Chutronge was up there. Doesn't matter. But then people were saying, like some of the comments were still along the idea of the words used in the article about disparity, and saying, all right, well, obviously I don't make enough, so I better move to that village. And but it wasn't done in a sarcastic way. It was done more in a way of, they believe that if you live in these villages, you make more money. And it was really, really stupid, because it's like, no, if you make more money, then you might have more of a choice as to where you want to live, and you might choose this village. And more people who make more money choose that village.
And granted, look, this doesn't matter. This article.
The article itself is only an example. It's only an example. But what my point is that the wording that the author used made it sound, it was like warping the minds of people not understanding the reality of the situation. And then you'd brought up what they call pedophiles now minor retracted persons. And then there's this one thing as well. Biden just referred to some guy who was an illegal immigrant, and he had killed somebody, and he'd referred to the guy. Biden had referred to the guy as an illegal, and then afterwards he got, like, a lot of people were getting on his case about it. He even apologized for using that word, and they called them like an undocumented person instead now. And all this focuses on the rights of the person who's in the country illegally and killing somebody, and there's no focus on the girl and the family who actually died.
Yeah, since himself.
He got the name wrong. He actually said the name wrong of the girl who died and never corrected that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Just the way that the media, the governments are just using language.
It's not even hidden, or it's not even like something that you have to look for anymore. It's freaking everywhere.
It's obvious. It's so
everywhere.
Obvious.
If you know what you're looking at, if you kind of have any sort of something going on in there, you can see freaking everything, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just in politicians you see on TV. It's not just in things that are being normalized. You look at your friends, you look at people around you.
Right.
It's everywhere. All this freaking indoctrination, all this.
Do you talk to your friends about this kind of stuff? Like, does it ever come up in conversation?
Sometimes.
Now, do they sort of buy into everything, or do they see what's going on like you do?
Depends who I'm talking to.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who do think more clearly, but are afraid to speak. Are afraid to say what they think because of repercussions.
Oh, I'm afraid to say what I think.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean,
what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but so that's one example of a speech is
because I'm not
so
at a place.
important.
I'm not at a place really where I can say whatever I want to say.
Yeah, sometimes
because that could mess me up forever. I don't have an income of my own. I don't have whatever. Like if I start talking a bunch of crap online, well, not crap, but if I start speaking things that people don't like, and if I'm trying to make an image for myself, I that can all just be taken away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that could be stopped.
Well, you heard about Jordan Peterson? Yeah,
What?
he got his license revoked for doing clinical psychology.
Yeah. And they're trying to reteach him things about
exactly.
where.
And the horrible part about it is, it's a complaint against him as a psychologist
By people who
never saw him.
Yeah, never saw him. Never knew anybody who saw him, and
It's nuts. The world is going crazy. And
when did you see a change in the world?
I think it's been gradual. I
When
mean,
was everything great?
So when I was in high school, I remember the concept of political correctness being introduced. Now, I don't know if it was simply introduced to us at that age and it was already a thing, or if it's that, but I think it was actually something that was becoming more widespread or starting to be introduced to society, this term of political correctness. And at the time, it did make really good sense. There's probably, now, it made good sense, at least in the context in which it was said to me. It's like, because it was more in the areas of being respectful to people as to not offend them. Now, that's not so much, if I just say that's probably not so different now, except there were lots of boundaries back then. Maybe it was things like, it's not politically correct to call the natives, the indigenous, the First Nations. We've gone through various names as to how we should refer to the indigenous in Canada, and probably the same way in the US. But it was common, like a long time ago, to call them Indians. Right now that name kind of came, I think, because people in Europe were trying to find a passage, a different way to go the other way around the globe to get to India for trade routes. And they ran into North America, and so the indigenous people there, they just sort of inadvertently called them Indians because they knew they weren't in India, but it's like they were you see what I'm saying? But my point is that it's like, okay, that makes sense to not do that.
Class is in 6 minutes.
It's a red light. So, so that made really good sense, right, in that respect. And it was more about being polite. It's not that people weren't polite before, it's that, where is this guy coming from? Going to? He's got that open. Okay. I think people were always polite. I think it was more that we didn't always recognize that a word that was commonly used could be offensive. So in that regard, it was introduced nicely, but then gradually, you apply it to more and more things. And it's gotten a lot more so, I think, since about 2010. But I really think in the last 10 years, more accelerated, and really even in the last 5 years, like really accelerating fast. And to the point where now it's ridiculous, where to now it's more to the point of one person's feelings are more important than the vast majority of people's feelings. It's like, now you, because you're
the vast majority of people's rights.
Rights, exactly.
As individuals. Yeah.
Hey, there's Dr. Kohornanen. Percy. Well, she comes to see me once in a while to get treated, but then also, I almost opened up practice with her. Sort of. A long time ago, before we got the Kirchberg property, for work. she was opening up a medical practice. You've been to it here in Rupertsburg. But they had found a space that was too big for I think there's 3 doctors. So they asked me, because the law had just changed, if I wanted to take the other half of the practice. And then what we would do is just put up a wall in between the two. So essentially we'd have the same space, but like the same rental property, but we were going to cut it in half. And I would have one side, I'd have a separate door, and they'd have a separate door to theirs. Because at that time you couldn't work together in Luxembourg. Professions had to be separated. And then, I don't know, one of the medical doctors had backed out. She's like, no, I don't like that. It was too much rent or something like that. She was worried about the risk. So it didn't happen.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, the acceleration is really huge, massive in the last 5 years. And to the point of logic is thrown completely out the window. And it's a lot of traffic here this morning.
Alright, good place to end.
Yeah, it's a good place to end.
Peace, guys. Bye.